Hello, everyone. This episode is Balling Out on Necker Island with Sir Richard Branson. Not one time, but three times. That's not the whole headline of the show. Commercial real estate investing and lending. New startup to fight COVID-19 with Diana House. So, welcome to the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. My name is Erwin Cito, trying to bring you the truth about real estate investing. Thank goodness the limits on gatherings are increasing from 5 to 10 people on June 12th. Like many of you, I'm getting a wee tired of the lockdown, especially with the weather being so nice. Especially when my mom lives in Hong Kong, and I ask her, so she's not rubbing it in, but I always ask her about the updates on COVID-19 in Hong Kong. That economy has never been shut down. Cherry's parents never missed a day of work. Restaurants never closed, but they did have to reduce capacity. A few weeks ago, it was 4 people per table. Now it's 8 people per table. It's been over a month now since they had a new local case of COVID-19. Any cases that they get, they're usually imported, usually from the United States. Often it's like students returning from school. There are plenty of lessons on how to handle a pandemic. Places like South Korea, Hong Kong, even New Brunswick, Canada, nailed it. BC is already going back to school part-time, and it sucks to be an entrepreneur. You entrepreneurs out there, many of you chose the entrepreneurial life so that no one would tell you what to do. So it's really odd now to be told what to do. On the positive side, with all the rioting and the violence going on south of the border, I'm reminded yet again how grateful I am to be a Canadian, and grateful for stock hacking and real estate. All opportunities are equally available to anyone, no matter the color of your skin. As a minority growing up in Canada, my family was one of the first Chinese to be here fleeing communism. So when I was in elementary school, there was of about 800 kids, 5 to 800 kids. And this is in Markham, Ontario, which I now refer to as Chinatown. There was 3 Chinese kids in a school of 5 to 800 kids. This was elementary school. There was my brother and I, so that was 2. And there was a third kid, which everyone else assumed was my brother as well. Now, investing has enabled those considered poor to enter the top 10% and even top 1%. We've had many of those folks on this show, and we'll have many more. The investing community, as I know it, was inclusive to all backgrounds, and unfortunately, there's a lot of assholes too. This is the Truth About Real Estate show, so I'll just tell it like it is. But we'll do our best to only have the cool people on the show, including today's guest and Diana House. Before we get to Diana, a few updates from our parts. For the second week in 11 weeks, I was able to beat Cherry in our weekly stock hacking competition. It took a personal best from me. I had to double my previous personal best for a 5-figure week, all in US dollars in cash returns, which is great. But Cherry still maintains an overall lead of over 5 figures. Cherry's made over 5 figures US dollars, but more than I have. It will be tough to catch her in this overall race, as we're both adding to our accounts after our most recent real estate refinance. We're not exiting a BRRRR, but we just on a buy, renovate, rent refinance. We just finished the refinance on it, and it's been a 13-14 month project. We successfully refinanced this house. I mentioned it probably on this podcast back in March last year about how Cherry was quite mad at me for buying a house sight unseen without conditions, and that I do not recommend this to the beginner or intermediate investors, or really anyone. I have a trusted team, which is why I was able to do such, and also sufficient capital to do so, to afford any sort of missteps that we had. And we had missteps. This house had a leaky basement. All the foundation walls in the basement were covered with black mold. There was a cockroach infestation I didn't know about. It was so bad that the contractors weren't willing to work there until we took care of that. So we took care of that. We found a dead mouse in the electrical panel. The electrical panel that happened to be knob and tube, which is a known fire hazard. And being a known fire hazard, you can't get insurance. No insurance typically means no mortgage. So we had to take care of that too. And also the proximity of the property to a university. No bank would give us A lender rates. A lender rates, yeah. On top of that, we're buying in a corporation. And as always, we stretch on the credit side. So pretty much the entire deck was stacked against us. We still managed to get it done. In the end, we renovated the house top to bottom. I had to replace the boiler too. That was like almost $12,000. So we had to replace the boiler too. We still had to add air conditioning. So it's not investment for the faint of heart. In the end, we renovated the property top to bottom, and I am beyond ecstatic with the second appraisal. The first appraisal sucked. The second appraisal was $40,000 higher than the previous appraisal, and they were only about 30 days apart, so it's not like time passed or anything, and the values changed. And the appraisal was only about 4 weeks ago now, so it was during COVID. So we got a fantastic appraisal during COVID. And I also provided that second appraiser an extensive, detailed list of all the costly renovations that we did, plus a quality comparable sale of my choosing. There are benefits to being a realtor and having access to data. Anyways, the plan is to reinvest these real estate profits, even though it's a refinance and it is debt. To me, it's good debt because, well, actually, to finish that thought, we're pulling out pretty much all of our down payment. Yeah, we're pulling out all of our down payment and some of our renovation money. We have almost basically a free house. So we're going to take this refinance money and we're going to reinvest it into the stock market, specifically via stock hacking, which is my favorite thing to do. Just as a generalization, my favorite thing to do is to have profits, reinvest it for more profits, and then we'll reinvest these profits about 2 more times, and then eventually we can pay for a new pool. That's our goal for next year. And pools are expensive. Pools, I imagine, actually the pool business is likely very busy right now with the whole COVID thing and people being restricted to their backyards. Anyways, none of this would have been possible without A, being Canadian, B, investing in whatever. So I've had a lot of shade thrown this way for investing in stock hacking, but to be honest, folks, I don't care what you invest in, just that you invest smartly and exit that rat race. On to this week's show, we have Diana House. She is a serial investor obsessed with empowering entrepreneurs around their business finances. Her track record speaks volumes. She's built a highly profitable 6-7-figure company. I stuttered. 7-figure, not 6. 7-figure company. She's been on Dragon's Den. She's done a successful crowdsourcing campaign and sold 2 businesses in the e-commerce space. She now works with a fellow entrepreneur who happens to be her husband on FFV Capital and Fast Forward Ventures, which is a real estate company focused on private financing and commercial real estate investing. She's quite the dynamo. As a couple, as a power team, they're quite the dynamo couple in building an investment portfolio, specifically more around office commercial and some retail. She's been featured as one of the top female entrepreneurs in Canada with the W100 and also recognized as a top 20 under 40 entrepreneur by Business London. So without further ado, I give you Diana House. Diana, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. This is so overdue.
It is, because I asked you, well, we were back and forth on a couple of things. I was in the middle of the conference, and then I know you're always busy. But what's keeping you busy these days?
Oh, well, today was a Friday, and I actually took today off, which was like a miracle, because I think I probably worked like the first 90 days of COVID straight. So I feel like I'm just giving myself that downtime. So yeah, currently I just actually finished like a 9-month commercial BRRRR. Like refi day was a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still celebrating that one.
Oh, so the mortgage closed last week?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It was a big one. It was a 9-month project from planning to both tenants moving in commercial. So it was like 13,000 square foot office in London.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty awesome one. It's beautiful. It's absolutely masterful. It's on like a main street in downtown London.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome. So yeah, just coming off of that one, I'm starting to plan for our mid-rise. So there wasn't a lot of movement happening in the municipality in London because of COVID, but it's just starting to happen. So I felt like we've been in the waiting room for the past few months, but now I feel like, okay, we're starting to get called in. So
Mhm.
that's been really good. Then, business as usual, pretty much with the private lending company. And then I had a COVID startup called GoFogit, gofogit.com, that started 90 days ago. So yeah, it's been pretty wild, but today has been a pretty quiet day, which feels like very much a luxury.
Okay, you said a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Let's start pre-COVID.
Okay. Deal.
So what I know you mostly for is private lending.
Okay.
So what is private lending, and then what kind of lending do you do on?
Sure.
And then,
So
and also, is it your own money or are you brokering deals, as in like
sure.
putting the deal together?
Yeah. I know you didn't ask, but I think it's interesting to note how we got into private lending, which was one of our first development projects, probably now 8 or 9 years ago, maybe a little bit less. And we actually were borrowers
Mm.
of private capital.
Hmm.
So essentially, private capital is, as opposed to going with traditional or A lenders like your, in Canada, your TD Canada Trust, your Scotiabank, the big banks we know in Canada. You can go either to a private individual or a company that will lend you money on, it's usually somewhat outside of the box, as opposed to, your first mortgage on a single family home. So, and that out of the box could be who the borrower is. So in our case on that project, my husband was a new builder developer. So we hadn't kind of built up his credibility with that. It could be because of the asset class. So in that situation, again, they were very hilarious. This is before I was involved. I am the very detailed, cautious compliance person, and my husband, and he's calmed down a bit. But when we first started in real estate, he was a little bit more of the cowboy. They ended up actually having a bank mortgage. I forget what bank it was. They tore down the property, and when they notified the A lender, the bank, they told them that, yeah, you're not allowed to do that. Yeah, so he was
More common than people actually know.
well, and I know you said you have a lot of like newer people in the real estate space.
Yeah.
Maybe an easy mistake to make if you didn't know, but yeah, banks really like assets, and they often don't look as land as an asset, which really doesn't make that much sense because, as we all know, land is very valuable. But they really like structures that are cash flowing
Yeah.
assets that people
Yeah.
can rent. And so a decrepit house is worth something to a bank. And then as soon as you tear down that decrepit house, the banks get very, very scared, and often, private lenders move in. So yeah, my first experience was as a borrower, and I was very confused about the whole space. And I was like, what is this 10% interest mortgage that you guys have? And they had a whole bunch of cross collateral. So that's when a lender will also tie up other properties for additional security. I know
Uh-huh.
you know, but more speaking
Yeah,
to
yeah.
your viewers. And at the time, I shared with my father that Jeff had done this. Jeff's my husband, and my dad, who's a very successful entrepreneur, and not a real estate entrepreneur, though he has become one over the past probably decade. He's in manufacturing defense. He said, "That sounds like a great idea. Do you think you guys can find more deals like that? I think I would like to be the bank and make 10% interest on my money." So the lending business really started from that experience. And it first started with just lending out my father's capital. And that's kind of how it started. And then obviously, as we became more successful, we also started lending out our own capital. And then we had, third parties who also wanted to do private mortgages. And then I think was it last year? Time flies. I think at the beginning of last year, I became a mortgage administrator, which is regulated by Fisco. So we administrate mortgages on behalf of third parties. It's very much like a white glove service for ultra high net worth and high net worth individuals who want to make the private mortgage process passive for them.
Right. So more your business is more of the same then. Still, you're trying to place high net worth money in similar projects, commercial,
Yeah,
residential.
so with regards to asset class, we do everything. We've done residential, commercial, land, golf courses, quite a bit of development, construction financing. We're very focused on Southwestern Ontario. We're based in London. We go back and forth between London and the GTA. But London is the market that we, know and feel most comfortable in. That said, we do lend across Ontario, and we don't do out of province. And our sweet spot is usually the $1 to $10 million range. We do, from time to time do smaller mortgages, but we like a little bit of complexity. We like to do portfolios where, it might be 10 residential properties, or again, something that has a little bit more meat and complexity to it, because my husband's background is commercial real estate. So he is very strong at identifying value and being very, very technical. And the yield is often directly correlated to the complexity. So like in Toronto, a first mortgage, pre-COVID, maybe 5.99% interest. We're just not interested in those deals. So we're looking for those deals that are going to yield 10%. And they usually are just a little bit more complex or bigger, or in these other markets like Southwestern Ontario, London, Windsor, where that GTA competition isn't.
Very interesting. Can we talk to, because Jeff, I believe, worked in commercial real estate, like for a real estate brokerage, was it?
Yeah, Jeff started at CBRE, CB Richard Ellis, and he literally started at the bottom, making like $30K, and just learning everything he could from his coworkers and his mentors, and that's kind of how he started investing in real estate, because he was like, okay, brokering deals is one thing, right, but being able to actually get in the game and invest is a whole other ballgame.
I know you can't speak for Jeff, but for anyone who's like really young and wanting to get into the industry, like say like a fresh grad,
yep,
right? Is that a path you think is a good path to start working for a commercial brokerage?
I do. I really do. He learned so much about analysis, finding deals, analyzing deals, valuing properties. I think it's such a strong foundation that really sets him apart as a private lender, as an investor, and a developer. Mm-hmm. And so, for him, he essentially got paid to learn. Mm-hmm. And he had, an amazing boss, an amazing mentor at CBRE, mm-hmm, who taught him a lot about investing and got him in the investing game early.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't know many people who've gone down the same path.
A lot of people get stuck in that path if they go down that path. I think that's the risk, right? If you go down the brokerage path and become an employee, sometimes it's a bit cushy and it's easy to kind of get stuck there. But Jeff is like myself, like we're entrepreneurs, we're a little bit rogue. So I think he probably always knew that he would never like end there. But I think you can learn a lot within like big established companies that have amazing training programs, mm-hmm, and that give you a lot of exposure to industry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so I didn't prepare you for this. So you mentioned rogue, and then my mind automatically went to Richard Branson. So how do you know Sir Richard?
I mean, the honest answer is I think if you write a big enough check, you can meet anyone you want. Right. So it was always my dream to go to Necker Island. Uh-huh. I ran an e-commerce company for many years that did really well and was pretty conservative with my profit and savings and things like that. So after several years, I was sitting in a hammock in Florida, and I really asked myself, like, if I could do anything as outrageous as it possibly was, what would I do this year? It was mm-hmm. December, so I was just starting to think about the next year. And my answer was like not going to space. It was going to Necker Island to spend the week with Richard Branson. And it was a really hard decision because it was at the time, I believe it was, don't quote me, but like between 45 and 50,000 US. And
that's not bad.
It was a significant plus flight, okay. Plus like, and it was like 3 flights. And at one point I found out that you were supposed to share a room with someone for that price. And I was like, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. But long story short, after saying that I wasn't going to go, I met a girl who weirdly enough was going to be my roommate. And it was like very serendipitous. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And I did go, and it was definitely life-changing. Mm-hmm. Richard is very rogue, and it was really inspiring to see someone who really lives life on his own terms. He doesn't work in an office, like, which I often don't either. Like, I have an office, but I'm there 10% of the time, maybe even less. He has this beautiful island, and that led to me also going to South Africa with him for another group trip safari, and then also back to Necker Island last year. So I've spent like 3 different chunks of time with Richard, and yeah, he's an amazing, amazing human being.
Well, just think of it this way: I spent more than that for an hour of someone's time to do a talk. So,
Hey, but you figured out how to make money off that.
I'm sure you figured out how to make money off of this.
You know what? Crazy story. So when I went to Necker Island the first time, I said I'm gonna meet the buyer of my company there. Okay. So coming back, I didn't meet them. Didn't think it was like, oh, that's too bad. 3 years later, when I sold my company, I thought back, how did I meet this person? And I went, no freaking way. There was one day on Necker Island where 50 other people came on for 3 hours. That's how I met him.
So who are these people? Like,
So
a cruise ship passing by? Like what?
No, this is, have you heard of Yannick Silver and Maverick?
It rings a bell.
It's an American-based mastermind. It's an amazing organization. Maverick ran the trip, and there was like 30 of us on the core trip, but they allowed like some extended members of the group to come on for like an afternoon. And that's when I met the buyer of my company, and I didn't connect the dots until like 3 years later. So yes, it was definitely worth the investment, and met some amazing people, and it's a very special place.
So hang on. So you would not have met your buyer if not for that trip?
Well, I may have met him somewhere else, but that was the first time I met him.
Hmm.
So kind of crazy, like proximity, right? I know you've done Tony stuff. There is something, you've done Tony stuff, right?
I've read a book.
Oh, okay. I thought you were on the Tony bandwagon. So Tony Robbins has this principle, which is all about proximity, which is getting as close to those people that you look up to. And if you're in the room, you're going to meet other people that will change your life, and, probably similar to your experiences with GC.
Yeah. No, Grant is it's just there's so many little things in just interacting with Grant that I picked up on. Like, he is such a gentleman, right? He's not like, it's hilarious to see people rip him on social media because like they have no idea who he is. They just know the social media personality. But when you're talking to him, when you're in person with him, having private conversation, he's such a gentleman, wonderful manners, a great guest. So,
Wow.
but we're talking about. So, is Richard nice?
He's very nice.
Uh-huh.
He's a huge prankster. He literally, I don't even know how many times he's pranked me. I've lost track. We also pranked him a few times because, like, you can't not. And I mean, he gives 0 Fs. Like, he does, he will stir the pot, and he will say what's on his mind, and not always politically correct, but he's a blast. And yeah, I definitely like changing to spend time around him.
Right. Because I remember Sarah Blakely showed that video of her jumping off that cliff. That was a part of a challenge of being on Richard's reality show. I'm like, you're all, wow. How old is Sir Richard?
Oh gosh. My guess would be like 70.
And he's jumping off cliffs? Like a swing bungee?
Like every day I feel like he swims, he plays tennis, and he kite surfs. And he'll literally have like the most stressful call in the world at 5 p.m. and he'll like go kite surf. Is it kite surfing or windsurfing? I don't know. I think it's windsurfing. He'll like go windsurfing for an hour and a half before, completely clear his mind, and then he'll like get on with all the world leaders right after. Like, he is amazing at balance.
I gotta work on my balance.
Me too.
There's no kite surfing nearby me though.
Hey, I don't know, the lake on a windy day, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. Anything else that you learned from Sir Richard? Are you gonna go to space?
Not interested at all.
No.
I don't know. And I asked him, actually, I challenged him on that. I was like, do you really care? And he's like, yes, I want to go up, and then he was like, I want to go up and then like look down at the world from there.
Yeah.
So I think he was like, I want to go up to have the perspective of the world from there. It was less about there and more about the view down here.
Mm-hmm.
That was his
Interesting.
paraphrased answer. Um, I think, the takeaways were really basic, but I think there's a difference between seeing someone as opposed to hearing about what they do. So I think when you see someone live their life, it's easier to make the connections of embodying those lessons. So like the main lessons were like fun, play, creating your own reality. Like Necker Island is truly like his playground. And yeah, like doing things on your own terms, but like really seeing someone doing it. I think for me, when I went to Necker the first time, I was struggling with the permission, like the self-permission to not have to work in my office. I felt guilty that my team and employees, and I know you're building an office right now, but I struggled with the fact that my team and employees were in the office, but I just wanted nothing to do with it. And I think he really gave me permission. Like he never said you have permission, but just seeing how he lives his life, I was like, wait a minute, I'm visionary, he's a visionary. Visionaries are allowed to do what we need to do. And that might look a little bit different than a manager leader type.
Mm-hmm. I think I read that Richard is big on hiring super talent to lead his companies. I'm guessing that's what allows him to be distant from his office.
Yeah, he's really good at finding leaders and finding people smarter than himself to do the things so that he can just be who he is.
Interesting. Cool. I wonder what his relationship is with like Elon Musk.
Right? Hey, that'd be a really interesting dinner. I'm sure that Richard Branson would prank him.
I don't know if Elon would appreciate.
Yeah, I don't know.
He seems a little high strung, but they're both amazing individuals, amazing human
Elon
beings.
just won. Elon won, right?
It's not over. It's far from over.
Okay. I feel like Elon won, so.
Yeah, being first is one thing. It's like see who has lasting power is completely. If one has lasting power over the other, who really won then?
That's true. That is true. But people, always remember the first person on the moon, not the fifth person on the moon, right? Or the person who went on the moon the most.
Yes, but I also believe in abundance and that there's plenty of space for them both to explore.
There is plenty of space. Amen to that.
So hang on, let's get back on track here. I had some original ideas to ask you. So we talked about commercial. Commercial. So the commercial investing that you do, because it's because I come from the residential world, so commercial is because so few people do commercial. We can just lump it all together. But truly, commercial real estate is quite spread out. Office, retail, multifamily. What commercial real estate do you do?
Yeah, so primarily we've done a lot of office. That's, obviously the space that my husband has been extremely trained in and well-versed in. We also have done multifamily, both on the investment side as well as the development side. We're doing a multifamily mid-rise project right now. We have some retail. We sold a bunch of our retail recently, so probably not the worst timed move for us. We have one restaurant left, which it has residential upstairs, so it's mixed use. But really, I think I was talking to one of our business partners about this yesterday. I think it's less about asset class and more about the deal. And for us, the deal is always a combination of location, price, and then tenant, the covenant. So in commercial, we speak a lot about covenant of the tenant. How strong is the tenant? Is it a AAA tenant? So it's funny because as I speak, things I would have said before COVID sometimes are a little bit different. But a AAA tenant is usually one of the big chains like McDonald's, Harvey's, Shoppers Drug Mart, things like that. And then a next level would be like medical tenants, multi-generational businesses, supply chain, things like that. As opposed to newer businesses that are less tested, proven models. New restaurants, I would say, are quite high risk, things like that.
And then how's the market been?
So do you mean like the past 3 months, or like
Yeah.
what time frame?
Yeah, because this will come out next week, so this will be. I'm sure people are interested in how the market currently is.
So my position on where we are is that we're nowhere right now. I think we're in a fake economy right now because of stimulus. So when people are saying like there's no COVID has had no effect on the economy and like I'm like, what are you talking about? Nothing has
Yeah.
happened yet. Like we're in no like there nothing. This is nothing. This is literally an irrelevant period of time, and I'll tell you why. So there's like an average bankruptcy rate of like every month there's X amount of bankruptcies due to stimulus and the lack of action that you can take right now, as in, you can't take people to court and things like that, evictions. The bankruptcy rate has actually dropped. So like, again, if people think that they know where we are right now, I'm like, no, no, no. Yeah.
This is communism.
Yeah. So like,
Very comfortable
again,
communism.
the bankruptcy rate has dropped. If that doesn't tell you something about where we are, the other really funny story, I mean, it's not that funny. It's pretty bad. We actually had a tenant that was, I didn't know, this is the one property that my husband runs that I don't know, it sneaked into his management list. And it was actually, they were in arrears a couple months. I didn't know. I found out during COVID. So they were in multiple arrears for a few months before COVID. COVID happens. Guess what? All cleared up because of stimulus.
Oh.
There's different tools right now. There's SEBA. There's what's the $2,000 a month thing?
CERB.
Yeah. I mean, I've run out of the acronyms.
There's all these new acronyms that nobody knew 3 months ago.
CECRA, CEBA.
Yeah.
CERB, so there's just so much money going around. So I would say that the only people that have gone down right now are people that were going down anyways. And I was listening to a John Love podcast at Kingset Capital today, and he was like, the only people that have kind of tapped out right now are people that like, they were probably really close to the edge and just like needed just a catalyst to get out. So I would say like, I have no idea what is going to happen with the market. Like I really have no idea. I can tell you that I've killed one commercial deal. It was a medical multi-office unit thing. Really liked it. It was a good one. But I was like, as soon as this happened, I was like, whoa, it's just not the right time. Mm-hmm. And then I also killed a large deal that was a combination of office and warehouse. Because again, there's so much uncertainty right now in the market, and this building struggled in the good times.
Ooh.
Yeah. However, I had another play for it. But still, all these real estate plays, they're not overnight, right? They take months, if not years. You still have to ride them out. And I think, tying up any cash right now unnecessarily, like I'm just waiting for home runs right now. Like I don't want to be in the gray. I am waiting for the absolute home runs. And, they might not come today. They may not come next week. But my guess is, and this is like a very vague time period, but, somewhere in the next probably 6 to 24 months, there's likely going to be some really big home run opportunities. That's my big guess. And I think that's going to be in retail, office, and potentially res. So the numbers that I've heard, the estimates that they're saying for defaults is about 2%.
Which is really high for Canada.
So that's 1 in 50. So if you think about, the 50 people, well, okay, that doesn't make sense because
that's
the
a
50
lot.
people are probably the smartest people that or they're probably in the smartest category. But if you walk into a shopping center and there's 50 people, like one of those people are going to default. That's really, really high for Canada. I don't know what the average rate is, but it's definitely 0.0 something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, anyone who thinks that they know what's going on, we don't know. We have no idea. There's too many X factors. Like how much stimulus is going to continue would be one of those factors. If I know a lot of it was extended, I think till August.
I think they'll extend it further.
What's that?
My guess is we'll see funding until after the election.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
my guess is there'll be a fall election.
yeah, and your wife's an accountant, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like accountants just know more than the rest of us average folks. So she probably has some thoughts on that too.
Well, she knows all these programs and she knows all these acronyms better than most because she needs to know it to support our clients, right?
It's a full-time job just trying to keep up with the acronyms and the changes because every
Yeah,
program has had like 3 changes.
yeah. Which is funny because then people usually ask me thinking I'll know, and like, no, I don't know. I just shut that part of my brain off, knowing that there's another better brain out there in my household that's got that covered.
Totally. So yeah, I have the one thing I'm saying with the office market right now is like I'm not like actively searching for deals right now.
Hmm.
Um, but there's always deals in every market. There's deals
Hmm.
now. I think there's going to be a higher proportion of deals later, like opportunistic deals.
Right.
But I'm waiting.
Yeah, I think I'll wait too. It's just like Warren Buffett said, like no one's calling because everyone's getting bailed out,
He
right?
said
There's all
the
this
phones
excess
are not
money.
off the hook.
Sorry?
I think he said something like the phones are not off the hook.
Yeah, yeah. And he hasn't made any big plays, right? As far as we know, he hasn't made any big plays. And like even who was it? Airbnb got like $1 billion deal. It was a sweet
Wow.
deal too. It's
I
like
did not know about that.
they're paying like 11% in for debt, and they can convert that to stock later because Airbnb hasn't
Wow.
IPO'd yet. It's like,
Wow.
damn, I wish they called me. I'd pay you 11% with debentures I can convert to stock later.
Wow. Yeah, no, I feel like everything's just frozen right now. Like there's nothing on the market. You know, there's not a lot of supply. Um, there's yeah, it's all to me an artificial economy. So I mean, I just can't see the path that this won't be like the biggest hit we've seen in our lifetime.
Mhm.
Like I can't see the path that it won't be. You know, because immigration has been affected. You know, I know right now there's like, oh, the unemployment numbers I think have gone down. Yes, but again, nothing has started yet. Like stimulus is everyone, like people are on wage subsidy. Like, you know, a lot of employers, if their numbers are lower than last year or
Mhm.
earlier this year, you know, they're still getting 75%
Mhm.
wage subsidy.
Mhm.
So I think we sit patiently. And, you know, of course, if there's epic deals right now, or the one thing I did purchase recently conditionally was a puzzle piece property. So it's a property that fits into a bigger
Mhm.
piece that I've wanted to have for 3 years.
Mhm.
And the pandemic actually created the climate for the seller to finally go, okay, we've been talking about this for 3 years. Let me put this on paper and let this go. Because they're smart and they know, okay, it's probably going to be worse. So if I was someone right now who was thinking about, do I sell now or do I sell later? Yo, I would be selling what you have now if it's not something that you want long term. I think it's a good time to sell right now. I don't know
Yeah,
what your
because
thoughts are on that.
I'm always big on taking action now because you never know what's going to happen. Things can always get worse, right? Like I said, like I think the funding's going to get cut off after the
The
election.
values have held right now.
I know it's crazy.
Like honestly, so there's 2 properties I told my husband we should sell right now, and for emotional reasons he won't. And I'm like, oh,
Oh,
fine, that's okay. It's okay. We're at the point that like I'm cool with a few emotional decisions here and there. One of them is like a legacy piece, and he's like, our non-existent children will drive by this one day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like you're cool to bleed on this, and he's like, yep, and I'm like,
oh boy.
oh boy, but it's okay because you don't have to win on every single thing. You're allowed to be a human and have emotions and feelings here and there.
Like CMHC just announced they're tightening their lending.
They are.
Nothing's ever gotten easier. Actually, they lowered the hurdle rate, so that I don't think that made a big deal, but the new changes they're making I think are a bigger deal than
Interest
that.
rates are low right
And they're
now.
low, yeah.
They're so low. That's what I mean. Like maybe to hedge against inflation. Again, if I saw something that was exciting, um, you know, maybe I was actually talking with my husband about this. I'm like, maybe the best play is like the dollar cost averaging play with real estate right now. Just buy one thing every month. Because right now you get the interest rate, thing, but I don't know. I think it's probably a terrible theory, but I was just playing around with that.
Depends on your long-term play. Immigration will come back. Like with
Yeah.
everything going on in the States, do you think more people want to go to the States or less people want to go to the States?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you're an American, how more people want to stay or more people want to leave?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So can we talk about law school?
Sure.
What made you want to be a lawyer?
I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like in high school, I just played sports and did bare minimum. And then after high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I like randomly went to Western, but like without even really thinking about it. And I like signed up for like humanities. Like I just like literally it was the last thing on my mind. It was just not there. And I did that for my 4 years of undergrad. Like I literally was the epitome of lost. I took one of everything. So much so that I went to Western Ryerson and McMaster.
Okay.
It's a long story. It does involve a boy and he played football and it's a long story. So after that, still had no idea what I wanted to do. Now I'm like 22, which is like, okay, this is getting a little bit scarier that I still don't know what I want to do and I'm 22. And my dad, who's very smart and unfortunately knows me a little bit too well sometimes, he was like, you're very argumentative. You should go to law school.
Right, right.
And, after I got over the insult of that, I said, what if I went to law school in Australia? And he gave me the thumbs up. And I did literally have like the best couple years of my life in law school. I did very little law schooling and quite a bit of surfing and adventuring in Australia. But I knew 3 weeks into law school, I was like, there's no way I'm going to practice law long term. It's not a good fit. I'm too rogue, essentially, what it comes down to. But it honestly was an amazing education, an amazing base. And I don't know, I have like one core lawyer, but like I have a team of lawyers for what I do. Half my life is managing and working with lawyers with private lending and real estate and license and franchise and all that stuff. So I actually think it has been a huge benefit to me to have that background and that way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Quick question. What
Sure.
does one do with the Bachelor's of Humanities?
You do something else.
Okay.
Well, you know what? In fairness, I think it made me quite well-rounded. Like I studied a little bit of anthropology,
Yeah.
a little bit of women's studies, a
Yeah.
little bit of philosophy, a little bit of sociology. It was actually very interesting, but it maybe would have been more practical to do business. But I got my business and finance education in my first company.
Very cool. Okay, cool. And then you mentioned before we were recording about why you didn't proceed with law? Because I know there's some people that are listening to this who are not unsure of the path they're on right now. So, you know,
That's a
well, I'm
terrible.
Asian, so I'm sure pretty much anyone who has parents who put them through law school is like, you're finishing it and
Oh
you're
yeah,
becoming a lawyer.
yeah. I really think, oh man, I have so much empathy for people in that time period of that uncertainty about like, and yeah, if you're, have parents that are very driven and have a goal for what your life's going to look like. I come from an extremely high performance family, very successful, and like immigrants, like came from Poland with nothing and then built an empire. So yeah, the amount of pressure was really truly palpable for me. And my dad, to throw him under the bus again, had a dream. His dream was his one daughter, my sister, would go into HR and be his human resources, and I would go to law school and be his lawyer. And when I told him I was not, he was furious. But like not even for like a day. It was years. It was literally years. Like even after I had like in my early or mid 20s built like a 7-figure company, like he still was like not really okay with it. And then I don't know what shifted, but I think like one day, like years into me being an entrepreneur, he was like, oh, okay, she's been successful. Okay. Like she was successful outside of this. I think he really didn't want me to be an entrepreneur because he knew how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. And it is hard, but I think everything's hard. Being an employee is hard too.
Yeah. Being a
You know,
teacher is hard. Like being anything is
yeah,
hard.
man, teaching kindergarten, freaking, is there a harder thing than that? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a harder thing.
Yeah. Being
So,
a cop, being a whatever city employee, they're all hard. Everything's
it's all
hard.
hard. And at least
Yeah.
with entrepreneurship, like at least you have a chance to make it big. Whereas in a lot of those things, you're capped. And so I think for me, like, I'd rather take the risk of, doing the thing that was hard, but had that, no ceiling.
Yeah. That's all
Versus,
the upside. Yeah.
well, and let's be honest, I'm completely rogue and completely unemployable. I never in a million years would have survived like working for someone else. It just wouldn't have worked. Like the way I work, my opinions, how I function, it wouldn't have happened. But the thing we were talking about before we jumped on was my parents kept negotiating with me about, well, just article and then it'll be enough. And I kept doing like just finished law school and then just, and I realized I was on this never ending path of there was always going to be another step in this career. So if you go to law school, and this may have changed, but back when I went to law school, probably now 10 to 12 years ago, if you go to law school in a place like Australia, you have to come back and then you have to take these NCA exams. They're like national accreditation exams. So I think I had to take 5. I took 3. And I specifically said, I will not take these last 2. Or maybe even been 1. But I was like, if I take this, then I'm going to have to go, well, now I'm going to have to article. And then like, I did like an Australian articling, but I would have had to do the Canadian one. And then I have to do the bar. And then and I just knew it was like literally a never ending path. And I knew that I knew I wouldn't be happy in that world. So that was hard. And I had to hire coaches to help me through that. I spoke with a lot of mentors. I was really looking for a lot of wisdom from people who could help me like work through that resistance of disappointing my family by not doing that.
Wow.
It was
Crazy.
heavy.
Well, being a student's heavy. Articling is heavy. Being a practicing lawyer is heavy.
For sure. But so, I definitely made the right decision for myself. And I've been very, very lucky. Like I've worked my butt off, but I've had a, very successful entrepreneur career so far.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I've, proved to myself, and it was out of a place of proving, I think for a long time, I proved to myself and others that this was the right path for me and that I could do it.
Right.
And now I can take a nap on a Friday and I'm okay with it.
Was there a lot of pressure then to be successful after you passed on law?
Huge. And there still is. Like for me,
like,
oh yeah, like internal pressure.
Okay.
I'm so driven. So like my biggest struggle is my drive versus my capacity are on 2 different levels. So like when I say like I took a nap today, like that's a huge accomplishment. Yeah. For me to take a Friday off. Like, and I didn't take it completely off, but to take a Friday 80% off and like down level, like my husband, he's always like encouraging me to down level because like I'm always up here.
Know the feeling.
Is that you too?
Yeah, I have issues.
Yeah, it's called workaholism.
It's called this whole like chasing the 10x.
Oh my gosh, but you know what? It's so fun too. As long as it just, I think our people's balance looks different. My balance it's not balanced every day. It's balanced over quarters.
Yeah, people don't get that. They think that they strive for a daily balance.
There's just no hope for me. I just don't function like that. Like it's my CEO for the disinfecting company, Go Fog It. I told her, I'm like, I will work like crazy for 5 weeks and then I'll kind of crash for 4 or 5 days. It's just my cycle. Yeah. And like, yeah, maybe there's a more balanced way to do it, but it's just the way I do it and I'm at peace with it.
Right. Well, the launch is usually gotta go. Right. There is no balance.
And then there's so much momentum and it's like riding that is so powerful. And even our COVID response business, Go Fog It, like a month in, people are like, wait, you guys did this in a month? And I was like, yep. Didn't sleep much, but
So tell the listener about Go Fog It. So I know because I see your social media posts.
yeah, this is a really crazy story. So, to me, there was like the day that the world fell apart, like, and like, I think that was the day after like the NBA got canceled and all that. And I just knew that day, that next day, I was like, there's no point in me going to work next week. Like, if I go to work, I am going to be so confusing to our team. I'm just going to distract everyone. So I'm going to just like pretend that doesn't exist, and I'm going to just like do my own thing. I just was so unclear about what this meant for private lending, real estate development, like investing. So I was like, I'm not even going to try to figure this out this week. So what I actually did that week was I like threw myself into volunteering. And in London, and I know you did similar, which is so cool. We were days
Not
away
the same
from
scale as you.
whatever. We were days away from our medical clinics to run out of supplies. And so I'm a problem solver. And I think like at my core, although it's not my normal life being a like philanthropist every day, like as soon as like those moments like fall in your lap, like I just get obsessed. So yeah, I poured my heart and soul. Like I think the first week I probably put like 100 hours in to getting everything going in London. And I remember it was Friday night at 9, and I was like, I'm doing nothing this weekend, literally nothing. I'm going to sit on the couch and do nothing. And I get a mistaken phone call. Okay. And so this guy is someone I was in a mastermind with, and he had literally called me by accident. He had saved my number wrong. He had saved my number as the sauna company. I have no idea how that happened. And we start talking, and after he realizes he called the wrong person, he's like, yeah, so you need to do disinfectant fogging, and you need to do it right now. And if you don't buy equipment in the next 48 hours, it's going to be gone. So you need to start. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So literally I went from like the first week volunteering 100 hours to being told I had to start this, to literally like, I don't think I stopped working for like 90 days. What it has become is a brand called Go Fog It. We had 150 different license requests from all around the world, from literally like Qatar to Australia to Brazil, to all around the USA and Canada, to do disinfectant fogging with natural disinfectants. So it's been really interesting. And I don't even get why I was so drawn to this until later. But I think for me, the pandemic made real estate so insecure and so potentially unsafe, both for people and as an investment. And I think psychologically, if I can understand how to disinfect real estate, that will make real estate safe again. Like if I go really deep into what was probably my motivating factor. So yeah, like I know way too much about disinfecting at this point. It's pretty wild. And Southwestern Ontario has borderline become the thought leadership for this like super progressive disinfecting technique.
So can you elaborate what the technique is?
Yeah. So
Paint a picture for the listener.
Sure. Yeah. So fogging in general has been around for many years in the restoration space, used for mold. So in the restoration space, they would use fogging machines, not like party foggers, but they're,
It looks like that, right? Like you have a fogging machine that sprays fog like people do at like concerts. They
it
like
doesn't
dry
look like
ice.
the party ones. It's like a commercial grade kind of metal thing. Well, there are many different materials, but disinfectant has progressed a lot over the past decades. People used to only use very harsh chemicals, but now with science and the push towards natural, there are some extremely progressive disinfectants that are completely natural. Safe for your pets, safe for kids, safe around food production, things like that. And so through analyzing like 100 of these disinfectants, we kind of found the right fogging machines, the right disinfectants, and then developed the right health and safety protocols to do this in all sorts of different spaces. So it's been really, really cool and really outside of the scope of anything I thought I would ever do.
Everyone I saw when you launched it, because you did it, you were doing it yourself. You suited up.
Oh, I've done it a bunch of times. Yeah, I think I was in Toronto like a few weeks ago, and I did a job for a friend, and I was like, that's my last one. I got to leave it to the team. Like, I got to pull myself out of this. But to be honest, it's kind of fun. And I'm the kind of person, anytime I do something for the first time, like I want to be in it. I want to be in the details. I want to feel it. I want to smell it. Like even with real estate development, like if it's my first kind of project, like I want to understand it on such a detailed level
Mhm.
so that next time I can do it from a higher place and not be in the weeds as much. But I need to be in the weeds the first time.
Mhm. So how long does the fogging process take, and then how long until people can go back into the space and start using it?
Does not take long. So let's just say like your typical residential home, you know, it could take like 20 minutes. And then because the products again are natural, like probably 30 minutes later, they could go into the house.
Oh wow! Because my
Yeah.
first thought when I saw you doing that, because of the business I'm in, my first thought was, well, it was all in the news how short-term rentals were put on hold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was even thinking like, I can't imagine staying in an Airbnb or operating in an Airbnb because of the how can you say it's safe after a guest has left, right? And then I see
Totally.
your posting. It's like, well, that's probably a good application for
For
people who
sure.
have
And
short-term rentals or
yeah,
turning
and
over
what we
tenants.
also realize is like this service model doesn't work for everyone. So we're also creating packages for, different small businesses for, let's just say, someone who has a short-term rental that has to do this every night or things like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're essentially like educating and empowering and giving people the tools to do this themselves as well.
That's awesome. Where can people learn about this?
So it's at gofogit.com. Go fog it. We've had some people make some hilarious ads and like they've really accentuated the fog. I don't know.
Go fog yourself.
Oh yeah. We had a great ad. It was like, "Dear COVID, fog off."
I like that. Now we're running out of time, but we have to touch on the charity component,
Okay.
because we've had it's going to come out even worse because when the tax man comes to Colin to pay for all the subsidies,
Okay.
it's likely going to be hit. It's likely small business owners who are going to who have to carry a large burden, especially the more successful ones, and based on the last time they brought out new tax changes, rich people, including doctors, were made out to be like demons. It's just, politically, I get what they're doing. It's not pretty though. It's not nice to hear. So I always like to talk to charity, because what were you doing? You mentioned charity. You started a charity. When this all hit, when the stuff hit the fan, when the fog hit the fan. Let me try that. What were you? And then you said you jumped into charity. What did
Mm,
you do?
sure. So one, I've been very quiet about like our philanthropic stuff over the years. Like last year, we did a lot of giving quietly. So, and it's interesting. Someone really challenged me on that. They're like, why are you quiet about this? Actually, one of the things that happened that changed my perspective on it, I was out for lunch with a mentor. And again, I'd given a substantial amount last year. And he was like, one day you will understand about giving. And I'm like, yeah, I'm giving away a lot of money right now. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll be like a little more public about giving just because it does inspire other people and things like that. So when I heard that the medical clinics were, running out of supplies, literally, I just started putting stuff on my Visa. Like, I think like the first day I put like, $4,000 of PPE on my Visa, just and like literally like just delivering it to the doctors because I'm like, it's literally like I couldn't live with knowing that. But yeah, like I think I also supported some what's it called? Like I guess it was like some homeless like organizations that support the homeless in London, and things like that. But yeah, I support kind of several different organizations, and really I think it depends on the season and kind of what's going on and different requests that I have. But yeah, I think giving is so important. Especially if you have been successful, but even if you haven't, I think getting into that routine of giving and like for us like the minimum we're giving is 10% of what we make. That's like our baseline of what we're giving. And, usually much, much more than that. So I think, getting into that habit of understanding that, we are so privileged to be able to have this success, and understanding how many people are, not in that position, and there's so many causes
Mm-hmm.
that need money. I think it's very powerful. One, as you're alluding to, on one level, there are tax benefits, of giving. That's obviously not why, you do it, but obviously, taking advantage of those tax benefits is important, especially as our tax rates will go up. I was joking with a few people. I'm like, we're going to have like 70% taxes in the future. I don't know. Like, we're already pretty high in the highest tax bracket. It could get crazier. But I think it's really powerful as well. Even, I know you alluded to the whole abundance thing. But when you hold on really tightly to what you have, I think, you don't really have that kind of abundance mentality. And for me, there's also like a big faith piece. I'm a Christian. And, I think it's really important for Christians to be role models there, and to give to those less fortunate to us, and give to causes that are meaningful to us. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's definitely a habit as well as a passion, and something that brings me a lot of joy. And also giving like outside of those formal structures and just doing really outrageous things for people, that brings me a lot of joy. Even just friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. So I just want to share part of the reason why we do it charity the way we do is just like why you're an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can do it better than other people.
Yeah. So do you have your own charity?
Yeah, we have our own
Oh, you
charity.
do? Okay. I
Yeah.
don't have my own charity.
It's a pain.
I've heard it's a lot administratively. I'm glad
uh,
that your wife is an accountant.
yeah,
That
I'm
would
glad my
probably
wife's
make
an accountant because
it a
you'd have
little
to
bit
pay
easier.
corporate tax filing,
Yeah.
right? So that gets donated.
Yeah.
You have to have big donors. So at least we can handle that. We can handle a large part of that.
Yeah.
But again, uh, a lot of charities get flack for the amount of overhead they have. We donate all of it,
That's amazing.
right?
So,
So our overhead is like maybe $100 in banking fees, right?
wow.
So
That's incredible.
that's part of the reason why we did our own, because we could just do it so much more operationally efficiently, dollar efficiently as well, and also then we can do it on our terms, right? We could set direction for it, right? But yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
I actually saw someone. I was really bothered by someone. They posted on their Facebook about something their parents taught them. There's a saying in a certain culture how giving should be done quietly.
Mm.
And my thinking was, why would that ever be if you'd never be able to set an example, right? It's like being a good parent. Like, keep your good parenting skills secret from your kids, right?
Totally. And I think, yeah, normalizing giving, I think, is really important. There's a great organization, I'm sure you've seen it, called, I think, Pencils for Promise. Pencils for Promise.
Don't know that one.
They have made giving like look so cool. And they do a lot of good, but like it's very much it's massive in the US, and like they have so many influencers, and like they're all like trying to one up each other a little bit, and like, hey, maybe not all of it's from the right place, but who cares? It's doing so much good for these organizations,
Yeah.
and it's getting other people to realize like, oh, giving is like normalized.
Yeah.
Like, giving is something that should just be baked in to what we do. And I think, on a spiritual level, I really believe that, like, what we have is not even ours. It's not ours to begin with. And giving that up is really like honoring, God. So I mean, that's a whole other level of giving, which I know not everyone would relate to. But I think that's really important element for me as well.
Right. Well, if nothing else, just leave the world better than it was when you came into it.
Well, and it's fun. It's so fun to be generous and do amazing things and make the world a better place. So I think it's really fun.
And the cool thing about charity is that you often bring out the best in people. Right. Um, so we're out of time. Diana, thank you so much for your time. Now I need you to share, where can people follow you? You have several businesses.
Yeah, I am on Insta. I'm at Diana Powerhouse, our mortgage administration company. So if anyone's looking for private lending, it's ffvcapital.ca. So that's Frank Victor Capital. It's actually sort of Fast Forward Ventures Capital. And GoFogIt is gofogit.com. And yeah, would love to connect with your viewers.
Awesome. Any final words?
No, but I can't wait to hang out with you in real life on the other side of this.
Yeah, send me an invitation to Necker Island and a check for
No, let's buy
45,000.
Necker Island one day.
Oh my
No, I don't want to buy Necker Island, but
God.
something like that. I'd like my own version.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, let's do dinner or something. Maybe in between
So,
Cambridge. We'll go. I was actually thinking. I remember because there's they have kayak rentals, and that sounds
oh,
socially distancing wise.
so my favorite place in Ontario is in Cambridge, Langdon Hall.
What?
Have you been to Langdon Hall?
Uh, doesn't even ring a
You,
bell.
oh my gosh. So once this thing is over, you need to take your wife to Langdon Hall for a full day of spa, hiking, dinner, drinks, pool, table. So fun. Langdon Hall is a very special place.
In Cambridge,
It,
Ontario.
it's spectacular. It's a relay and chateau, which is this very high standard. And in normal times, I'm terrible. I'll go like once a month with a girlfriend or by myself or with my husband. And it's like it's my version of balance. I'll like work like a crazy person and then I'll go there for a day and completely rejuvenate. And then I'll go work like a crazy person again. So
Right.
it's awesome.
Still sounds so North American to only go for a day.
Well, you could stay for a night. It's quite expensive. Their like nightly rates are not. I'm about value, and the value to go for a day is extremely good.
Right.
It's like $200 to go for the day. So I don't know.
That's
It's
not
just
bad.
no. It's like and that's like for a massage and lunch, and it's incredible.
That's awesome. But hey, good value. Like Necker Island, what you paid versus what I paid for an hour of someone's time.
We're gonna do that
Diana,
again.
so thanks so much for doing this. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thanks
your
so much.
time and stay safe.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.